An Indian was a finalist for this year's Pulitzer. What? Well, I read the book, so let me talk to you about it. Hello. My name is Priti, and I like to read books, but I also am very fascinated by bookish prizes. So, be it the Booker Prize, which I read the entire shortlist of, which you can check out, or the Women's Prize, or the Pulitzer Prize. I like to keep myself abreast as to what is happening in the bookish world, especially to do with prizes. So, when the Pulitzer Prize was announced last month, I was like, oh my god, I need to get to it. So, before we get into what happened with the Pulitzer Prize, which was very interesting, let us get into what the Pulitzer Prize is in general. So, the Pulitzer Prize was started way long back, and it started off as a journalism prize, now which has gone into many other things that it also gives awards for, and it is set in the US. Now, the Pulitzer Prize is very different from any other sort of prize because it doesn't have a long list and then a short list. Basically, what it does is that when the winner is announced, we also get to know who the finalists are. And so basically, we're just kept in the dark. And the only people who know about what's happening is the jury. And the jury only gives the board the short list. I know this is a little complicated, but essentially, the jury is selected and they read a bunch of books and they give the board members of the Pulitzer Prize a short list of like, hey, these are the books that I think will be great for this year's Pulitzer Prize. These should be like the finalists, I think. And then from that list, the board chooses who they think would be a Pulitzer Prize winner. So it's really strange and very different from how any other prize sort of functions, but it is very well renowned. Now, this year there were three finalists for the Pulitzer Prize for fiction, and the three were essentially, I have them right here. Yes, so Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver, the Immortal King Rao by Vauhini Vara, and a Trust, which is right here by Honan Diaz. Now, the only book that I had read prior to the finalists being announced and then the winners being announced was Trust by Honan Diaz. I read it for a Booker shortlist sort of video, which you can check out in I'll put it down below if you want to check it out. But I really liked the book. I thought that it was very interesting in what it did, and I thought the author showed some great amount of skill to write the sort of book that he did. And you can check out more of my thoughts on that. And then Demon Copperhead, I have not read, but I know that it is shortlisted for the Women's Prize, which is going to be announced super soon. So I want to read it. And I know, however, that it is the Americanized version of David Copperfield. And David Copperfield, I tried to read when I was very young and did not get along with it. So I don't know how I would feel about this one, but a lot of the people who have read this book have absolutely fallen in love with it and think that it's amazing. So, yeah, this is a book that I definitely want to read and will definitely read at some point of time and tell you more about it. So, subscribe for that. But basically, for the first time ever, there were two winners for the Pulitzer Prize for fiction, and that were both of these books. So both of these books won for the first time ever. This was the first time this ever happened, and the only one that lost out was the Immortal King Rao by Vauhini Vara, and I felt bad for her. So I was like, what? This book was like super hyped in India when it first came out, and I really wanted to read it. So I had the book with me, like in my house. So as soon as I heard that this was the only book that sort of didn't win from the finalists, I basically picked it up and started reading it, and I really liked it. So I am here to tell you what my thoughts are on this book, why I thought that this got finalized, and why it perhaps lost out. But yeah, I am here to tell you all of the thoughts, and let's get into it. So what is this book about? This book follows King Rao, and we get to see him as a child as he grows up in a coconut farm in Karnataka, and his family is from a Dalit background. So we get to see him in this joint family of sorts, and we get to see their lives. So even before, from when he was born to when he is born, and the sort of trials and tribulations that they sort of go through, and how he sort of grows up to become this founder of a tech company called Coconut, which is sort of a mix of like Microsoft and Google and like Meta, like Facebook Meta, all in one. Like it's a weird sort of thing. It's interesting. So we are told of this story and of his past through his daughter, whose name is Athena, who has a very interesting power of sorts, which I don't want to talk to you about because spoilers. But essentially, we are living in a world called Hot House Earth, because like climate change has essentially ravaged us. So there is like drought, but there are also floods, but there are also fires, and it's just terrible. And governments are in like debt. So what they do is that they start outsourcing various parts of their government to companies that have money. So for example, like housing or technology or whatever, slowly people and companies and corporations sort of start taking over. And then essentially King Rao comes in with this concept of like an algorithm that can just basically take over everything, and be like the best sort of like dictator as to what things are good for the world. It's like this weird sort of AI essentially. So essentially what happens is that governments basically cease to exist, and there is the algorithm, and then you as a person have social capital in which you can sort of barter to get things or like do things. Now this part of this book wasn't so like well explained, or maybe I just didn't get it as a person, but it was very interesting. But what also happens is that there are certain people who are like, we don't want this sort of world, and they are then like said, okay, we will give you a separate place, and they are like sort of like these exiles who live in like these islands which are far away. So they are called, what are they called? They are called the X's. Yeah, and they live sort of on the outskirts of society. Now, if that was confusing, that's only because I am a confused person. But in general, I think it was pretty well explained in the book. And essentially, through different sort of timelines, we get to understand how King Rao became the sort of person that he is, how the world became the sort of place that it is. And we get to see various like things of him coming to the US, for example, how he started this company, or also of him being in his hometown, and what that was like as him as a kid, as well as like stuff with his mum and his dad, and like a bunch of different things. Personally, I loved the depictions of. Wait, I should get into what I liked and what I didn't like first. So let's get into that. But essentially, that's what this book is about. Alright, so what did I like about this book? The first thing that I want to talk about is the dystopia and the use of tech in this like book. And I just think that that was really well done, because first of all, what you need to understand is that the author is a tech journalist. So she has been entrenched in this world for a long period of time, and she spent over 12 years writing this book. So she has a very interesting like and like in-depth knowledge of the world of tech, and also like where it's going and what people are trying to do. So a lot of the things just seem very real. So for example, there's this one thing. After I finished the book, I got to know of like Elon Musk's this one thing called Neuralink. But like, yeah, Google it, and like that is a part of this book as well. And it's just very interesting how she's taken various aspects of the tech world and shown us this dystopia that may very well come true. The number two thing that I liked about this book was the way that she critiques things. So in this book, she critiques a bunch of things, be it capitalism or AI or technology, but she also shows us how they can be used for good. But also at the same point of time, while she's critiquing capitalism, she's also critiquing like socialism and showing us how that too may not work. So it's just a very interesting way of showing us that maybe nothing works, and it's just interesting. I really liked the way she did that. Number three is Dalit lives. So as I've said, I've really liked how she has like etched out these characters of the people who lived in Karnataka in this coconut farm and how they lived a Dalit life. I think that she has etched out their lives in a really good way where we get to understand all of like the social and political stuff that may go behind like a person who might be Dalit and what that could feel like over the years. But also like I just think that like that particular storyline was very well done. So Vauhini herself comes from like a Dalit background, and she has like reached out to like her family and parents to sort of give her an idea as to what that life might look like. So I think she's done a pretty great job with that aspect. So number four was the writing. I think that she has written really, really well for a debut, especially, and I think that she had like these certain things and plot points in the beginning that kept you interested to understand what happened in like in the end where we get to understand what exactly has happened. And in general, I just thought that like it flowed really well and like her characters were also sketched out really well. So yeah, overall I enjoyed this. But now let's get into the things that I didn't quite like about this book. So overall, in terms of the things that I didn't like about this book, I think my number one thing will be the different timelines, because there were just too many timelines going on at the same point of time. I think at one point in time we were in 4 different timelines, and obviously there will be some timelines that you like more than the others. So I came to like a point in time where I was like, really, when we got to one timeline, I was like, oh my god, why are we here? And then when we had to leave another timeline, I was like really sad. So yeah, I felt like if we had lesser of those, then I would have probably had a better time. But like it was still interesting and it kept you on your toes because you got like so many different parts at the same point of time. Number two was I was a little confused about like the tech aspects of it. I just wish that like we got a little more on like, for example, how does like social capital work and all of that. As you could see, I was a bit confused about that. But in general, I mean, even though those sort of things didn't play too much of a part within the storyline itself, I just wish that we got a little more idea about how that would work, because I just thought that it was really interesting. And I would actually love to see like another book which is set in like that other part where we get to see how like the social capital etc works. And yeah, I just thought that was a little lacking for me and I would have wanted more from it. The third thing that I didn't quite like was the ending, which sucks because I was really liking where it was sort of leading to, and I just wish that we had a more like interesting ending. I won't say what exactly like I wanted from the ending because then you would know. But yeah, I was a little sad about the ending. I just wish we got a little more there. Overall, I really like this book. I thought that it was very well done, and I think that there is a lot in this book that you can like take from and discuss. The ratings on Goodreads is sort of like all over the place, but I think personally I would give this a 4 star. I really liked some aspects of it, but I wish we got more from it. But let's now move on to why I think the Pulitzer chose this to be a finalist. So I can totally see why this was finalized for the Pulitzer, because I feel like it has done a great job in critiquing a lot of things that are very pertinent in world today. So be it tech or be it AI with like chat GPT and everything going sort of crazy, or even like Photoshop, everyone's going a little crazy Priti, about AI, and this has a lot about that. But not only tech and AI, but also like classism and power, and like generally trying to find equilibrium in like the world as well as like yourself, if that made any sense to you. I just think that those things were like the core of this book. But more than that, it was basically about this man, and his impact on the world. And it was told through the eyes of his daughter. And it's about leaving a mark on this world, be it any shape or form. And um, I don't know, I think that's what people really just ultimately want to do. And I think it spoke to all of those emotions. So I think that's why it was finalized for the Pulitzer, and like rightfully so, I guess. But yeah, so who should read this book? I think people who like dystopian books or anything to do with, like, for example, if you've watched Black Mirror or Love, Sex, and Robots, or those sort of like TV shows, etc., I think that you will like this. Also, if you like any sort of like tech, or if you're a tech person, even if you're not, I think that this will work for you. Because the second aspect of it, which I think like why people would read this book, is that if you like stories of people, especially stories of people where you get to see like from them from the beginning to their end, and you get to see like a remarkable life that they sort of lived, I think that that would be good for you as well. If this is like the sort of book that you want to read, I think this Immortal King Rao would be a great book for you. But yeah, that is the end of my review. I hope that you liked it. I have spent a lot of time agonizing about this. So if you did like it, I do hope that you press the like button. And if you are not subscribed, I do hope that you subscribe, and then also hit that bell icon so that you get to understand when I have put up new content. And if you have reached till the end, and don't know what to comment down below, then please do leave me like a coconut emoji. Or if you have read the book, then tell me what you thought of this book. And if you want to read this book, then well, just tell me down in the comments. That's all I want to say. All right, so that's all for me today. Goodbye.